Big stretch, Maddie.
I'll be 90 years old with the mic and a cane, rocking the crowd while we're praising his name. All my kids rolling in the station wagon, jumping out the car with the kids all rapping. I make big fat hits, big fat beats. I rock old school rhymes, old school sneakers. I make the hip hop banging in your boombox, the good stuff that makes the devil shake in his socks. I'm proud and traditional. A microphone doctor dash professional. Operate on the big beats, the best. Live by the gospel, oh yes, yes. With the big crucifix around my neck. When the devil come a bugging, he got to hit the deck and get out, cause there's tricks I don't need. If lies were legs, he'd be a centipede. So I flow with the power from the Holy Spirit and turn the speakers up so everybody can hear it. Oh yes, like that. Rhyme smoother than a Cadillac. 90 years old with the mic and the cane. Rocking the crowd while we're praising his name. 90 years old with the mic and the cane. Hands in the air like that now. Praising his name like that, like that. 90 years old with the mic and the cane. Rocking the crowd while we're praising his name. All my kids rolling in the station wagon, jumping out the car with the kids all rapping. 90 years old with the mic and the cane. Rocking the crowd while we're praising his name. All my kids rolling in the station wagon, jumping out the car with the kids all. So I rap to the beat of a different drummer. If I lie to compete, I feel dumber and dumber. I make tracks, the type to give you goosebumps. Extra large rhymes, supersized bumps. Eat it up and you're ready to move. Heat it up and you're ready to groove. I ride it on a Thursday, track it on a Friday, mix it on a Saturday, it's ready by Sunday. So I attack the mic to bring light and tell the evil in this world to take the hike. Make it a long one and keep on walking, cause in this heart of mine, the words of truth will do the talking. City of angels, where I live is LA. To be more like that name, I hope and pray. High level, building thoughts like a rock so they stand. Build your life on faith, not on shame. 90 years old with the mic and the cane. Rocking the crowd while we're praising his name. 90 years old with the mic and the cane. Hands in the air like that now. Praising his name like that, like that. 90 years old with the mic and the cane. Rocking the crowd while we're praising his name. All my kids rolling in the station wagon, jumping out the car with
Good morning. It is Friday, August 28th, 2020. Coming to you live from sunny Webster, Massachusetts. Today's guest is going to be Julie Brown, author and a public speaker and more. Julie's going to be on talking about her new podcast. She's going to be discussing her book and the business world, both pre and post COVID. Kind of how you can move about and still kind of make your way in the world, I guess, business wise. Real quick before we get to Julie, I have a couple of sponsors that I definitely need to give thanks to. A big thanks to all my sponsors: Tranquility and Company, handcrafted candles and soaps. You can find Tranquility Company at www.tranquco.com. It's a local candle and soap business, mother and daughter operation. Also, thank you to Rock Solid Solutions. Head over to Stone Builds Best for all of your hardscaping and wholesale needs. Villa. Homeownership made simple. Head to facebook.com/Stephanie Harkins Real Estate to buy or sell. French River Auto Detailing, because every detail counts. Facebook.com/French River Auto. And last but definitely not least, this episode and all of my episodes are powered by Poddex. So without further, I can sit here and talk forever. I'm going to bring Julie Brown. Julie Brown, thank you for coming on, Julie. How are you today?
I am great. How are you?
I am doing excellent. It's great to have you here today, Julie. I first came to know Julie through this pandemic that we've all been living through. Lisa Nickerson with Nickerson PR had started hosting Lunch with Lisa, and what it was basically a big. I say big. It was awesome for me personally. I was in a job transition. I was in law enforcement, and I have since transitioned out into marketing, which I have come to realize is a tough game to jump into with limited background in it. So the very first episode of Lunch with Lisa, I believe, right? You were the very first.
It was the very first episode. Yeah, I was her guinea pig.
That's great. Yeah. So you were the first guest on, and honestly, it was really what sparked my interest in Nickerson, and then truly kind of catapulted me forward with my interest in marketing. And it's funny because I believe that your first episode that you were on there with was talking about networking and how best to network in today's day and age. And what I personally was used to a long time ago in a past life, I used to work political campaigns, and with each event, I would, business cards were like baseball trading cards, at that time. And what I would do is I would get someone's business card, and every conversation that we'd have, I would jot a couple of notes on the back of it about what we talked about, your name, maybe something that really stuck out to me, your dog's name or something to that effect. And pretty much a month to the day, following whenever, or if there was a reason to follow up, sooner, I would send a quick email out. Hey, Julie, it was great to talk to you at whatever event. Hey, I hope your dog's doing better. I realized that they had a vet appointment or whatever. And then I would build from there. I would, whatever we talked about in our back and forth email after that, I would bring up in our next conversation, and then we'd kind of roll from there. But I came to realize that is kind of an antiquated method of doing things, although effective. There's a better way to do that now, right?
I don't think it's antiquated. I think whenever you show interest in somebody and you reach out to them and you have something interesting that you remembered that you talked about, everybody wants to be heard. Everybody wants to be listened to. So the fact that you were listening in your conversations and then reaching back out and shining a lens on what you remembered, like that, I don't think that's antiquated at all. I think that's the beginning blocks of creating relationships with somebody.
Oh, perfect. So I did something right then.
Yeah.
That's excellent. So Julie, tell us about yourself. Who is Julie Brown? Where are you from? Are you married? Do you have kids, pets?
Yeah, it's so funny that you ask, like, who's Julie Brown? Because in my book, I say you are your best networking tool. Like, you have to know who you are. You're your best networking tool. And I came up with this approach called the List Yourself approach. And that is exactly what it sounds like. It is cataloging who you are in this world and what you like to do in it. And so chapter 2 of my book is let's create a list of who you are. And so if I was going to create the list of Julie Brown, it'd be, I'm married. I've been married for almost 16 years to an architect so I'm an extrovert. He's an introvert. And we have 2 rescue dogs. We have 2 German short-haired pointers. We are big skiers. We have a vacation house in Vermont. We're big world travelers. We love to travel the world. And so obviously COVID is, it's hitting our traveling a lot. We just canceled 3 vacations.
Wow.
Canceled a vacation to Grenada, to Lake Louise in British Columbia, and also we canceled a trip to Barbados. Those were all pre-planned and paid for.
Oh.
We are huge wine snobs. Last year we went to South Africa to go wine tasting. We've been to the Hungarian Wine Festival in Budapest. Like, we love wine. We're both tequila snobs. We're mountain bikers. We took up mountain biking a few years ago, so we love mountain biking. I personally, not just hosting a podcast, I'm an avid podcast listener, but I pretty much only listen to business podcasts or true crime. So
Okay.
True crime is where I spend like my free time is listening to true crime podcasts. And I'm a runner. I've run the Boston Marathon 3 times.
Wow.
So like just cataloging yourself. And the reason why I say the best way to network with somebody and you are your best business tool is People always say they don't have anything to talk about in networking events, and you have so much to talk about. You have more to talk about than you think. You are more interesting than you give yourself credit for. And if you take that time to do that list yourself approach, what you can do with that list is you can create what I call dopamine inducing questions.
Okay.
And dopamine inducing questions are questions in which to elicit a dopamine response in the listener. And so dopamine is a neurotransmitter. It sits in the pleasure center of our brains. The lowest dopamine inducing questions are, there's two: how are you and what do you do? And those are the questions that people mostly ask at networking events. So I steer people away from the lowest dopamine inducing questions and say, use your list to create really high dopamine inducing questions. And that's when you're going to have those great charismatic conversations with people. And
Okay.
like you said at the beginning of this, that's when you're going to have something to write down on the back of that business card and say, okay, this is what we connected on. And this is my excuse to reach back out and see how they're doing and start fostering that relationship.
Okay. Now, now I guess with the way the world is transitioning now, less of a face to face and more of a, like this right here, virtual Zoom. I mean, if this were a year ago, you and I would be sitting in the same room, but here we are, fast forward to 2020, we're not.
Yeah. So we've got to look at it this way. So we've been essentially dealing with this since the middle of March. So we've been doing this for a while. We're all starting to get really comfortable networking in a virtual space.
Sure.
In March and April, when you met me I believe you met me at the end of March, virtually met.
Sure, yeah.
Everybody was really grappling with, like, how am I going to do this online? How am I going to meet people online? How am I going to do deep dive relationship building online? How am I going to have strategic introductions online? We actually don't worry about that right now I think the worry is lessening because this is now how we've been doing business. So like March, April, May, June, July, August, now we're going into September. We're heading into our 6th month. So it's we're becoming more comfortable creating relationships and meeting people in this space. People are no longer saying, oh, well, is it weird to meet for the first time over Zoom? No, because this is the way we have to do it now. So you can still create deep relationships, create strategic introductions to new people in this space because this is what we have available to us.
Right. Now, for somebody who's, I guess, not as comfortable, I guess, even face to face. I mean, you have a lot of introverts that have a hard time with just that. Do you think that this has helped them, or do you think that is there any difference in this at this point?
So introverts are introverts in person, and they're introverts in a virtual environment. So what I tried to do with my book and now with my podcast is give really actionable tips so that anybody can feel comfortable creating conversations, starting to build business, whether it's in a virtual environment or whether it's in an in-person environment. People are always worried about networking. They think networking that makes them feel icky. It's like sales, and it's not. You have to really create a new definition of networking in your mind and say, I'm hoping to meet people I want to meet new people. I want to proactively meet new people. And I want to do that with the hope of helping others. And with the hope of helping others means I have something to give. My skill set, somebody needs my skill set. My genius zone, what I do for a living, somebody needs that. I need to find who needs that. And there's nothing wrong with when someone needs what you do. When the two of you connect, there's nothing wrong with that. Also, if you look at networking from that hope of helping others, if you go in there into networking events, whether they're in person or whether they're virtual or you're just meeting people strategically, if you go in there with the hope of giving first, okay, how can I help this person's career? Like maybe it's just another strategic introduction. Maybe it's I'm going to give them information that is useful to them. Maybe I'm going to create a strategic introduction that's useful to them. Maybe I'm going to invite them to an event that they will meet other people, or that the topic of conversation is something that they really need to learn about. Like when you start flipping the script of networking in the sense of, yes, we network to build businesses, but we should network first with the thought that we are going to help other people first. And when you do that, the reciprocity reflex kicks in, and everybody wants to work with you and everybody wants to repay the favor. So don't go in thinking, oh, I need to ask for something. Go in thinking I need to give something.
So your suggestion is really to get out of almost the egocentric mindset and focus further on what I can do for other people, because, pay it forward. If it comes back, great. If not, well, you know what? I made a good friend.
I'm constantly, and I think we also have to, and you say the egocentric mindset, we also have to have a real respect for how long some business can take. You're going to meet somebody and you're going to help them, and they are going to immediately pay the favor because they're in the position to do that. But you're also going to meet people, and you're going to foster a relationship with that person, and you're going to help them over a period of time, and they're not going to have the opportunity to repay the favor for maybe like 6 months, a year, 2 years. We don't know. Every relationship has its own incubation period for when it's going to be able to become a referral-based relationship for you.
Right. And I think that, to use myself as the example, I think this is a perfect example right here between you and I. After I listened to you talk about networking and how to put myself out there more, and how to, reach out to other people and meet new people within the business world, I think I immediately added both yourself and Lisa on LinkedIn, and just shot a quick message. Hey, listen, a wise woman just told me that I should really reach out and start networking, and here I am. So, I think from there we moved into our illustrious conversation about the Tiger King, which, by the way, thank you.
Oh my God.
But then, and you're absolutely right. Pay it forward. Here you are today. You've been in this game much longer than I have, and I have a much more established, footing on it. And, I took a lot from you, and and here we are today. So I appreciate the networking that we've done. What would you tell the person that I guess that is completely a fish out of water? You've got right now, we're in a state of the world where people are jobless, not by choice, but jobless due to force. And we have people right now who are, their business, their market is not even thriving, to say the least. And, now they find themselves looking at other ways and other means to bring in income, and other ways to build themselves. What would you tell that person who's really in that kind of rebuilding process?
So here's the thing. The number one thing I would tell them is they're not alone. 33% of people are expected to get laid off during COVID. I'm going to leave this interview and I'm going to go meet with one of the women in my network who recently got laid off. Like, it is every day that I find out that people are laid off. So they're not alone. There's no shame in being laid off during COVID. And statistically, and I think I might have mentioned this in the Lunch with Lisa that you watched, statistically, 85% of jobs are filled through networking. And of all of the available jobs that will be out there, only 26% of jobs will ever be advertised. 74% of jobs are filled through word of mouth. Companies don't put out, job postings. They go to their network and say, hey, we're looking to hire for this position. Do you know anybody? 76% of jobs are filled that way.
Wow.
So, and 85% of jobs are filled through networking. So what do you think you have to do?
Right.
You have to start tapping into the people you already know. You have to have no shame around the fact that you are looking for a job. What you need to do is make a list of all of the people you know. Like, let's start inventorying our network, and let's start reaching out to them and tell them honestly the position that we're in, and ask if they know anybody who might know of a job opening. You should, everybody, again, another statistic. I'm really into analytical data, but
no, listen, I like it.
Statistically, everybody has a sphere of influence of 250 people. And that means 250 people, from your family to your friends to your past colleagues to your college roommates to people that you don't see that often. It's about 250 people. And that sphere of influence, what that means is your opinion carries weight with those 250 people. So let's start just making a list of all the people you know and who you could reach out to tell them your situation, because you're not alone. 33% of people are expected to get laid off. And the scary thing is 40% of those jobs are expected to never come back.
Wow.
So you need to start networking to be able to try to find those positions that aren't advertised.
Yeah, you're not kidding. So I can tell you that from my perspective, when I first was, sitting there having my, what the heck do I do moment, that was it. I mean, it ruled the day. I sat there and I said, well, I've spent 20 years in public safety. I've known and lived one thing almost my entire life, and my degree is in criminal justice. So I actually sat there, not to sound like a poor me, but I sat there and said, well, what do I have to offer the business world? I mean, I own one suit, and that was to go for job interviews for different police departments or to go to court, So, I think the first thing I did was I told my wife, I said, I have to sit here. I said, our income is limited. We're a single income family, and that was by choice. Prior to my injury on the job last year, we collectively as a couple decided that we were going to homeschool my daughter. And lo and behold, a month and some change later, I end up with a fairly catastrophic injury that then, lands me out of work in theory. And then fast forward to, COVID time, it was at the suggestion of my doctor that I walk away. So I sat there and I said, what do I do? I was involved in politics very heavily. I find it to be, which this is no surprise, I find it to be an extremely dirty sport, if you will. And I didn't want any part of that. My moral compass said, run the other way and run fast. So I didn't want to get back into that, but I understand that, part of marketing, which I truly had an interest in, is political. It is who you know. And I looked at it and I said, well, do I look like I'm groveling? I'm sending, I went from a network on LinkedIn of, I think 100 people to now I'm on the encroachment of 500. And truly I talk with every one of them now. And that was, again, at your suggestion was, hey, reach out and just shoot a message, say hi every once in a while. And I do. The person that's sitting there in their closed bubble, having their, I don't even want to call it a midlife crisis. It's just a crisis, an identity crisis. What do you tell that person? I mean, I think you have, but, just do it, right? I mean, just get out there and hit the ground running, I'm assuming. What more would you say?
So I sort of went through, I didn't get injured and lose my job, but I went through sort of an identity crisis where I looked at my career. So my company is almost 5 years old. And I got to a point in my career where I'd been in the industry for 16 or 17 years. And I was like, I'm not happy. I'm not happy doing what I'm doing for other people. Like, I know that I want to do this for myself. I don't want to make money for other people anymore. And when I decided to go out on my own, and I think anybody who, whether you're looking for a job or you're trying to say, like, can I make my side hustle my job, or can I take
Sure.
this thing that I'm really passionate about and make it a job, make it a career? What I did was I went to some very trusted people in my network. And I said, this is what I'm thinking of doing. I had it laid out. I had the framework of what I wanted my company to be. And I went to those people and I said, this is what I'm thinking of doing. Do you think that that companies in in my industry, in the marketplace, do you think anybody would hire me if I did that? And everybody I went to ask, do you think a company would hire me, said, we're hiring you. Please don't go to anybody else.
Well, that's great.
And so the lesson there is a couple of things. Have your ducks in a row. Know what you want to be doing, whether that's you want to start your own career or the job that you want. Like, make sure you know what you want to do. And then when you know what you want to do, go to people and ask their opinion, ask for advice. I wouldn't have the company I have now if I didn't lean on a lot of other really, really smart people in the industry and ask for advice. So no one goes it alone. No one succeeds alone. Don't think you have to do this alone. Like, your network is your network for a reason. Lean on them. Ask them for advice. Ask them to help you. Ask them for strategic introductions to somebody else who might be able to help you. But get the idea of what you're looking for. Like, you did this. You said, this is what I want to do. I want to get into marketing. And in your email to me, you were like, I don't know where to start because this is what I want to do, but I don't have a background in it. But you have to actually verbalize and write down what you want to do so that other people can help you. People cannot help you unless they know how.
Right. And I think that that was truly what motivated me, is that I said, I'm not Superman. I can't do this all myself. I need somebody to help me out, whether it's good, bad, ugly. Whether somebody said to me, "Hey, this isn't for you. Swim somewhere else." Or whether it was the fact that, I got a lot of great advice, and I can tell you that, I say marketing is tough to get into. It really is, but I am now. I mean, I think I'm 3 months into, really trying to get this off the ground running. I've had, in this last week alone, I've had 2 different businesses reach out to me and ask me to help them because they've seen different things that I've done now. And it's really been a good, positive, motivator and an eye opener for me that, listen, stick with it. Don't beat yourself up over it. And, things will come to fruition, slowly but surely, especially in this, in this time that we're living through.
Yeah. And that's another thing people have to understand. Like, there is absolutely no overnight success. Like, it doesn't exist. And if somebody looks like they're an overnight success, they've probably worked for 2, 3, 5, 10 years to make it look like that. Like,
right.
I have people now 5 years into my business. They're like, "Oh my God, you're killing it. You're everywhere." And I've been everywhere for 5 years. It's just now starting to hit a critical mass.
Right.
There's no overnight success. It takes time, and you cannot get frustrated at the time that it takes, because everything worth doing or worth getting for yourself will take time.
Right. And I think that, we're in a society that it's I want instant reactions, and I want instant for lack of better terms, instant gratification.
It doesn't happen.
Right. Exactly. And you can't expect that. Julie, before we transition into your business, can you, I got a couple of messages that are coming in, a question, and one asked if you could pull your mic just a little bit closer. I guess there's still some difficulties. No, it's my fault. On my end, I'm having, my chat log is so delayed that I'm not even seeing any. So I have to keep almost looking away from you to look over at the other.
Make sure it's like fully, because like this is a big ass mic. Oh, sorry.
That's ready. There we go.
And I just want to make sure that it's fully plugged in the back. Can you hear? All right. Can that person hear me now?
Becky, if it's Becky Gomez, and let's see. I'm telling you, it's like one after another tech. It might be on my end, to be honest with you.
Okay.
But in any event, Nicole Steven wants to know, and I was just going to ask you this anyways. What type of business were you in before you started becoming an author and publishing this book and your podcast?
Yeah, and this is so crazy. So I worked in architecture and construction for, it was either 16 or 17 years, I think 16 years. But within that industry, I was the director of business development. So I was in charge of bringing in new business, creating new client relationships, building a network of people to provide information for me. So I always knew what was happening in the industry. So I was doing what I was doing. I was networking and I was doing business development and lead generation, but I was doing it full time within large, major organizations within Boston.
Okay.
And then when I went out on my own, when I had those conversations with companies that I mentioned, and I said, I came up with an idea for a company where I said, I can do what I do, but I can do it for multiple companies, multiple smaller companies that can't afford a full-time business development person in-house. So I went to multiple companies and said, if I did this and you got 20% or 25% of my time, but that 25% of my time includes full access to my network and all of the people that I know, would you keep me on a retainer base to be your business development consultant? And everybody said yes. So that's how the company started. the public speaking and the writing the book and all of that, within about 6 months of me opening my company, like starting my company, incorporating my company, and I had a full roster of clients, I started getting inquiries from different organizations, private companies, and also industry organizations to ask if I would give speeches on networking and business development, because everybody wanted to know, like, how do we teach our emerging leaders how to network? How do we teach people how to grow a pipeline of business? And that's when the public speaking started. And so I've been, doing public speaking now for about 4 years, almost 4.5 years. I mean, and I've given hundreds of speeches. I've traveled across the country to talk about networking and business development. And because of that, because of all of those speeches, I had such an amazing catalog of data and case studies and information. And I said to myself, well, there's a book here. And that's when I wrote the book.
That's awesome. I think so I personally, I know it might be hard to tell, I am a bit of an extrovert. So when it comes to reaching out, when it comes to making those connections, to me, like I'm not really intimidated by it, and I think that making those calls, I think it kind of surprised me more that you had kind of tapped on that you are a bit of an introvert, which I.
Oh no, I'm not an introvert. My husband's an introvert.
Okay, so
I'm
then
as extroverted as they get.
I was gonna say that makes almost close to no sense for me, because I think everything that I've either listened to of yours or watched of yours, you've been the personality in the room. So
my husband and I are complete opposites. Like opposites attracted there. Like he's an introvert and I'm an extrovert. However, he started his own business, and in order to start his own business, again, obviously he's married to me. So the first thing I was like, network your face off, like
right.
let's build some relationships. And he wasn't comfortable doing it at all. And this is a lesson for the introverts that are listening. It was painful for him to go to events at first when he started his company. And so what I would do is I would go with him to the events and I would start brokering all of the relationships. I would like break in and say, hi, I'm Julie. This is my husband, Chris. Never been to this event before, blah, blah, blah. Like starting the conversations and teaching him how to follow up and teaching him how to remember names. And I would say I went to probably every event with him for about 8 months. And at one point he said to me, he goes, you don't need to come anymore. Like he felt like networking is like, it's a muscle, and you have to flex it and work it out consistently. And you cannot be mad at yourself if you aren't good at networking to begin with. I always say people don't pick up a guitar and not know how to play it and be like, shit, I suck at this. Well, yeah, you suck at it because you haven't taken any lessons and you haven't practiced. It's the same with networking. Like, you don't get mad at yourself for not knowing how to do something you've never done before, but people get mad at themselves or feel like self-conscious about networking when they haven't had lessons on it, but lessons by reading books about it and knowing tips and tricks on how to do it. And then by practicing, by like just going to networking events over and over again. It gets easier and easier the more you do it.
And it's funny because my wife chimed in there with her own little emoji raising her hand. She's like your husband is more of the introvert than anything. I'm the person that'll walk in the room and scream that I'm in the room.
I'm here.
Yeah, exactly. And my downfall, I would tell you, is I can't remember names to save my life. And what we'll often do is we play off of each other. My wife doesn't like to do the introductions, but she will also be the one that says, hi, I'm Aaron. What's your name? And then, so yeah.
Okay. So remembering names is super, super important. Dale Carnegie has a quote that says the sweetest, most important sound in any language is somebody's own name, something to that effect, because people love the sound of their own name. And I don't take offense, but I always say people who say, oh, I'm not good at names, are like really good at just not giving a shit about other people. Like, you have to remember name. It's their name. It is the name they were given on the day they were born.
Absolutely.
And nothing will whip your head around faster in a crowded room than hearing your own name.
Right.
Like, people love the sound of their own names. So you have to remember you have to learn how to remember names. And my husband used to say this to me because we would go to events, and on the way home, I would say, who did you meet? And he was like, oh, I met that guy from there. And I met that guy. And it was always that guy and that guy. And he was like, well, who did you meet? And I was like, well, I met Linda and Stacy and Brian and Craig. And he said to me one day, he said, well, you're just good at remembering names. And I was like, no, I actually at that point realized I had a formula for remembering names. I talk about all about this in the book in depth, but here's like the quick formula. One is don't worry about saying your own name. Like it's the number one thing because this is what's going to happen. You're going to meet somebody and when they say their name, you're like so nervous that somehow for some reason your name's going to come out wrong. Like you're going to say the wrong name. Like your name's going to come out of your mouth fine. So this is what happens. Your name is what you hear in your own head because you're going to be saying it. You totally miss what their name is. And then when you say your name, immediately you're like, shit, I didn't even hear their name. Like, and then you're not even a part of the conversation because all you're trying to do is figure out the name you didn't hear. So I always say, like, be prepared for the name, listen to their name, and don't worry about saying your own name. It's going to come out fine. So that's number one. Number two is before you say what your own name is. So Dana, if you said, hi, I'm Dana, I would say, Dana, it's nice to meet you. I'm Julie. I would repeat your name before I said my own. And the reason why I want to do that is I want to repeat it to know that I got it right. And because sometimes it's like Diane versus Diana or Steve versus Steven. And
Sure.
I'm very, very conscious of getting people's names correct. And then, so I know I've gotten it right, but now I've also said it out loud and I'm starting to create like a memory in my brain. And then this is what I do that never fails is I make a name association with that person. So for example, we were out at our pool. We have a vacation house and we were out at the pool and this couple that I'd never seen before, they must've been renting somebody's condo, came to the pool and I was talking to them and the woman said, oh, I'm Ruth. And immediately I went, okay, so she's Baby Ruth. Like, I won't forget that. And her husband's name was Paul. And I said, okay, so I have an uncle named Paul. So it's Baby Ruth and Uncle Paul. Like, I'm not going to call them Baby Ruth and Uncle Paul.
Right.
But I will never forget their name. And like a week later, we saw them and my husband goes, oh, what's their name? He's like, names again. I go, Ruth and Paul. I'm like, have you not read my book? Like make a name association. Like, so these are a couple things. There's more to do that
Sure.
I talk about in the book, but those are like the first three things. Listen to their name, say their name before you say yours, and then make a name association. Like, I'm not going to tell you that you're going to remember 100% of the names, but I am going to tell you you're going to remember about 90% of the names.
Right. Right. And I mean, I would assume that 90% is going to get you a lot farther than none.
Yeah.
So.
And then the thing is the next time you see that person, you don't have to go through that awkward, oh my God, what's their name? I know I met them. Oh my God, what's their name? Like,
Sure.
that won't happen to you anymore.
Right. Right. So Nicole Stevens says that's exactly what she does. She does the name association. And my wife says that you're in her head, that it happens to her every time.
Downtown Julie Brown. Is somebody calling me Downtown Julie Brown on the screen?
I haven't seen that yet.
Okay. Now it's all good. If your listeners are of a certain age.
Right.
Yeah.
So Nicole wants to buy your book. Where can she get your book? Oh, sorry.
Oh, I always throw in my husband that I'm going to go back to my maiden name because I'm so sick of Downtown Julie Brown. But, you know, we've been married for 16 years. 16 years ago, a lot of people remembered who Downtown Julie Brown was. But now, 16 years later, people are like, who's that?
Yeah, right. That's the worst. So tell us about your book and where Nicole and where the rest of us can get it from.
Yeah. So the book is, and you know, it's an outline of, okay, you want to build a network. This is how we do it. And it doesn't matter where you start. It does, you know, where you come from is not a deciding factor in where you're allowed to go. You do not have to be born into a well-connected family to be well-connected. You can make your own connections. And the book is all about like, all right, how do I assess my network? How many people do I need to know? How do I go to events? How do I follow up? How do I go to conferences? How do I ask for things? How do I build relationships, or the different stages of building relationships?
Sure.
What is the difference between EQ, IQ, and personality? And how does that feed into the neuroscience of creating relationships? It's all about the subtitle of it, everybody remembers This Shit Works, but the subtitle is a no nonsense way to network your way to more friends, more adventures, and more success. And I put them in that order because most people are like, oh, I want to be successful. But for me, a fulfilled life is I have friends, I have adventures, and I'm successful doing what I love. And the book shows you how to do that. It shows you how to make money without killing yourself. You do not have to kill yourself to make money. You do not have to be working 60 hours or more per week to make money. There's absolutely nothing wrong with doing what you love and making money and having fun while you're doing it. And so that's what the book is about. I'm going to come out with a second book at some point, because after I wrote the book, COVID happened, and now our lives have changed a little bit. And I want everybody to there is a virtual networking chapter within the book.
Okay.
All about how to connect on LinkedIn, how to connect on email, how to further a relationship with somebody that you haven't met in person. So that actually, and I did that before COVID, which was amazing. But you can buy the book on Amazon or Barnes and Noble.
Okay. I just put a link in the chat for anybody that's watching on Amazon. You can just click right there and head right over to purchase the book. And then so with I forgot where I was going with that. So the book is there. You know, it's funny. I think you're the fourth author that I've had on here, either, directly, talking about the books that they've written, or indirectly we get to the book. And every one of the authors have said almost the same thing that you said, was that I'm working on writing another book, because after I finished the first one, more things came to light, more things came to mind. Yeah, I think it's interesting.
I had a moment when I'm not artistic. I can only imagine, like, how does a painter know a painting's done? Like, you could keep painting forever and it would never be finished. And I was like, I had a book writing coach, and when I thought the book was done, she was like, this is a good book. Like, stop writing. This is a good book. And about a week later, I called her in like a panic, and I was like, but what about this and this and this and this and this? And she was like, Jules, write another book.
Right. Gives you a follow-up to it.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to produce that?
So in general, a rule of thumb for creating a book, for writing a book start to finish, is about 18 months.
Okay.
I had worked on my own for about a year on the book before I realized I really need someone to tell me how to do this. Like, I really need someone to hold me accountable, to give me deadlines. And that's when I hired my book writing coach, and we worked together for 1 year. So in total, it took me 2 years, okay. But when I really focused, it took me 12 months.
Oh, that's awesome. So, so you had the general framework all set that you wanted, and then what did your coach kind of, hone things in a little bit more, or help you,
I had a general framework, but then after working with her, and she asked you a lot of questions that I didn't ask myself, like, who is going to read this book? What do you want them to get out of it? Who's going to read it on a Kindle versus in paperback? Like, what do I want to get out of the book? Like, when I went through that whole exercise, the book changed.
Okay.
Like, the chapters changed. I took complete parts of the book out and put other parts in. So it's a journey you take when you're writing a book. Like, you start off with an idea and you start off what you think you're going to write about, and then as you're writing, it morphs into something else.
Okay. I don't know. That makes sense. And then at the completion of it, it morphs into your next book.
Yeah.
Nicole said she just went on and purchased your book, so you've got another
thank you.
Another reader right there. So you had touched on you had said that with your work doesn't have to kill you, and that if you're doing what you love, you don't have to spend 60 plus hours. I think that's important, because I don't think enough people are doing what they love now. I think that people are. They're living. What do they say? You're living to work, or you're working to live, and you're not living for. Which you know where I'm going with this. And how does somebody figure out? I mean, obviously the face value is there. Do I love what I'm doing or not? Well, I can tell you that. And again, I speak for myself. My prior job, I loved my job. I loved what I could potentially do for society. But I wasn't, there was a lot about it that I didn't love, and I didn't realize it until after I had left. And, would I change anything? Absolutely not. Obviously maybe a little bit of the pain, but it developed who I was. It was a lifelong goal of mine to get there. I got there. I'm a card carrying member. I got the t-shirt, whatever you want to call it. But I've moved on, and I feel, and I'm sure my wife could chime in better. I feel like I'm doing more things now that I truly love, both passion projects, both as an income and for fun. I built a deck. I've never built a deck in my life, and I finally have the time to spend with my family, to spend on my house. What do you tell that person who's sitting there saying, well, should I walk away and try something new?
I mean, that's an interesting question because I would never tell somebody what to do.
Sure,
what
sure.
to
Well,
do.
all right. So maybe not so much tell them what to
It's really
do.
hard. So I am married to a man who at 6 years old knew he wanted to be an architect. That's all he ever wanted to do. He had I don't know how you have a passion for that when you're 6 years old, but and he was drawing houses like when he was a kid.
Wow.
Like he knew exactly what he wanted to do. I'm so envious of that
Sure.
because I started my company when I was 39 and it has changed. I didn't know I was going to be an author. I didn't know I was going to love being an author. I certainly didn't know I was going to love being a professional speaker. You know, we put a lot of pressure on people to have a passion for something. And sometimes we don't know what that passion is. And then we make people feel guilty about not having a passion or a guiding light towards something. And I don't know if you saw the lunch with Lisa with Terry Trespicio.
Yes, I did.
So, and Terry and I are, I mean, we're all friends. Me and Lisa and everybody are all friends. But
I did a writing workshop with Terry.
yes,
Yeah.
Did you do the gateless writing?
No, it was What? Say it again.
Did you do her sprint?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she is amazing. She has a TED Talk that is like, I can't remember exactly what it is. It's been viewed like 5 million times. But
Sure.
It's like, screw passion. Like, you don't have to have a passion for something. You can have a passion for something at one point in your life and not at other points in your life. Like, we put so much emphasis on saying, like, you have to have a passion for something. And sometimes we fall into what we were meant to do. So the only thing I can say is you know whether you're happy or not.
Right.
And you know whether what you're doing every day feeds you or takes away from you. And that's where you have to start thinking about, should I be doing something different? What does something different look like? But I don't think you need to be driven by a passion for something else to
Sure.
have that conversation with yourself.
No, and I think that's important. I don't think there's enough introspective, I guess, evaluation, if you will. And again, I at 37 years old, I've started a new career, almost, I guess, a new phase of my life that I never had the chance to live before. And I look at it now and I'm like, gosh, I can't believe it took me 37 years to get here. I still say, and my wife said the same thing on the chat here. She said that it's like saying that I think I know what I want to be when I grow up. I still have no clue what I want to be when I grow up. I'm a 37-year-old child. But I can tell you that I have a passion and a drive for something. And I think there's a lot of people that have that really aren't tapping into that. And I think that it's great that, that society and this, the season of life that we're living through is allowing for people to take that jump, and really push forward.
Yeah. And I think also, like, if you are struggling with your career and you're like, I don't know if I want to be doing this, but I don't know exactly what else I want to do, I would say there are a lot of people online selling, there's a lot of people online selling the idea that you can be whatever you want to be and just buy my course and you can do it and whatever. And I just want to say, like, do not take advice from anybody who's just pontificating and throwing pretty sentences at you that are supposed to motivate you. Like, you need actionable steps.
Sure.
So whether you need to hire a coach or, work with somebody, but don't make actionable steps based on like a one sentence that for 1 minute ignites something in you.
Right. Yeah.
There's so many people online who are like, I'll tell you how to do it. I'll show you how to do it. And then it's just a bunch of fluff.
Right. And I think that's someone else's, that's somebody else's passion project right there, is I'm going to sell how to make money by me selling, it's like a cycle,
I'm going to sell how to make money by just tossing sentences at people and actually not giving them any actionable steps.
Right. And I think that, with people losing their jobs, with people, in the, I don't want to jump as far to say a recession, but I mean, in the financial state that the country's in right now,
we are technically in a like the technical term for what we are dealing with.
Well, there you go then. So I think that, to to find your own actionable steps, like you say, is to find the most affordable yet the most advantageous. So, you know, if it is spending $1,000 on a class and that does help you, then great, have at it. But for me personally, you know, I found that, you know, I need to focus more on our family's bills and less on, you know, purchasing classes. You know, there's plenty of free classes that are out there. There's plenty of, I mean, I call it YouTube University. You know, you can go on YouTube and find anything now.
Yeah.
You know, and
people say to me, like, I give almost all of my shit away for free. It's like, I have a YouTube channel, I have the podcast now, like, I do free webinars. Like, I give most of my shit away for free. Like, when you sign up for something that I do, you're not getting a little bit. Like, you're getting it all, you know, because I don't make my money off of helping somebody, you know, like one entrepreneur. Major companies hire me to like put their teams back together and teach their teams how to build relationships and analyze their relationships and figure out new targets. Like, so while they're like the major companies are paying for me to do that, like I'm going to give away as much free shit to people who need it as possible.
well, and I think that's working out for you too. You know, I mean, it's you know, free. You know, free isn't always cheap. Free is not cheap,
Right.
and free can be very beneficial for yourself. You know, and for somebody who's tuning into to what your free is. And I think that this, you know, just, you know, to circle back to the beginning, you had said, you know, your introductions is not about you; it's about somebody else. And how can you help somebody else? Well, you're helping someone else has then in turn now helped you. You know, and that shouldn't be obviously your self-centered goal, but I think that, you know, it's one hand washing the other in whether it's overnight or not. You know.
When you help somebody, just don't keep score.
Right,
Like,
right.
this game is not about quid pro quo. This is not, and is not one hand washes the other. It's not I do this, you do that. It's not tit for tat. It is I'm going to give and then I will receive at some point, but I'm not going to keep score.
And if you don't receive, then you know what? So be it. You helped someone.
Yes. I mean, there's a difference between helping somebody and being a doormat. Like, I don't want anybody to be a doormat.
Sure, no, absolutely not.
Over you unless you throw yourself on the ground. Like, don't be a doormat. But you know, nice guys don't finish last, and that doesn't. If you're a nice guy, it doesn't mean that you're going to get walked all over. Like, you know, if people in your life are toxic and taking advantage of you, but if you are giving and you haven't received yet, and it's only because the opportunity has not, you know, arised, then that's okay.
Sure. Well, and I think that, and again, I mean, Alex, Pastor Gomez, it would be able to better cite it, but there, you know, the Bible tells you that you shouldn't be doing good to then stand there and tell everybody, hey, look what I just did. You know, you're doing good, but for the virtue of doing good for others, and not for, hey, look what I did. You know. So, and again, I'm sure he's gonna fire something off to me right now, but I'm getting there. But that said, what would you tell? I guess you know, going forward, you know, we're now, I guess, I don't want to say post COVID, but we've been, like you say, we've been enthralled in this for quite some time now. And if somebody doesn't have a good handle on it, I don't want to say, you know, shame on them, but if somebody doesn't have a good handle on what to do next, I mean, I think that this is a constant building and a constant developing. What other methods do you suggest that somebody looks into that's, you know, still building their network? Is LinkedIn the best route for them, or, you know, like you say, picking up the phone and calling those 250 people?
So this is what I would do. It's never one thing that builds your network. It's not like this is what you do and this builds it. Like, it's a culmination of a lot of different acts. So the first thing I would do is I would really get a handle on how many people you already know. Like, do that network assessment to figure out how many people you already know, and then the strengths of those relationships. Because there's people in your network that you're like, oh my God, I haven't talked to them in like over a year. Like, why has it been that long?
Sure.
So do that assessment of your network, okay? And then have, you know, and I think I mentioned this with Lisa, or
I was just gonna say, I think you had almost a Venn diagram, didn't you?
yeah, like what you should do is like make a list of all the people you know, and then every day you should pick up the phone and call one person. Just
Sure.
call one person and ask them how they're doing. Ask them how their life is, if they need any help with anything, how are the kids, how are the dogs, like whatever. One person a day out of your network. Okay, so that's one thing you do. The second thing I would do is, LinkedIn is a really great tool, but it's only a great tool if you use it as if you were connecting with somebody in person. And what I mean by that is you should never connect with somebody on LinkedIn and just hit that thing that says, like, add to my network. And
Right.
They get a blanket thing that says Julie Brown would like to add you to her network. Like, this happened. Dana, I don't know how many of these I get a day where it's just people sending me LinkedIn requests. And it's like, I would like to join your network on LinkedIn. And my first response is, why?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
What do you want from me? Why do you want to be a part of my network? Like, I want you to write me a note and say, Julie, I read your book, or Julie, I listened to your podcast, or Julie, so-and-so told me that I should connect with you. And I've done some research on you, and you're the kind of person that I want to connect with. Can we connect here? And then when all this COVID shit is behind us, can we get together in person? Like, that's the kind of LinkedIn request you send. You do not just send the blanket one. You can grow your network organically on LinkedIn if you do a little bit of research. If you find out any, common connections that you have with the other person, call the common connection and say, hey, I was thinking about connecting with this person on LinkedIn. What can you tell me about them? And then you get a treasure trove of information. And you can say, I was talking to Dana, and Dana mentioned that you do this and this and this, and you just sound like such an interesting individual. I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn, but I would also love to connect with you, on Zoom or whatever. LinkedIn is a really good way to grow your network organically. But the onus is on you. Like, if you connect with somebody on LinkedIn and they accept your LinkedIn connection, guess what? You have work to do now. Like,
right.
the job has just begun. So the second somebody accepts my LinkedIn invitation request, I copy their email out of the contact information and I send them an email, and the subject line says, thank you for accepting my LinkedIn request. And then I write an email. And it's a thoughtful email because I've done my research on them and I know who we have in common and I know why I want to connect with them. The worst email is like when you get an email and you're like, why did this person send me? Like, I don't know what they want from me. Like, tell me why you want to connect. It's not rude to say why you want to connect. It helps direct the conversation that we're going to have. It's going to help me find time to put you in my schedule. Do you want to talk to me for 15 minutes or do you want to talk to me for an hour? Like, the more information you give that person about why you want to connect with them, the better. So you can totally grow your network on LinkedIn. And then events are still happening. Organizations are still having events, and they're becoming very nimble at making sure that all those online events have some form of networking, like whether it's breakout rooms or whatnot. Like, they're getting really good at making sure that those online Zoom events or whatever platform, that there is an element of networking and meeting new people in those events. So don't not go to online events. They're wildly successful. You'll be wildly successful meeting new people. Again, the onus is on you. You go to a networking event, you talk to a couple people within that networking event, on the Zoom platform, you get their contact information, and then you send them an email and you say how great it was to meet them at that event, and you further a relationship that way.
Okay.
Everything is on you. Follow up is your job. If you are going to build a power network, if you're going to have the kind of career that you want, where you're making money and you're not killing yourself, all of that follow up is on you. It's not their responsibility. It's yours.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now that would be applicable to anything, really, any workforce, I would assume, right? Whether it's being an author, whether it is whether it's marketing, whether it is pastoral services, whether it's, you're running that home business of, the athletic wear, if you will. Okay. You can reach out basically and network regardless of what your background and regardless of what your hopes and plans are, right?
No one's not allowed to network. I mean, there's no one out there who does not have the capability of networking or who is not allowed to networking, or that networking would not benefit them.
Sure. A couple of final questions for you, Julie. One, what does the office world look like right now? Where people were walking in and heading to their office or heading to their cubicle. What are things looking like out there right now?
I don't know because I'm a solopreneur. So we're like in my office, but I'm the only one here. I do belong to Lisa and I both belong to the Commercial Real Estate Women's Network in Boston, and it's about 400 to 500 women in the commercial real estate industry. And we meet once a month still to talk about real estate as it pertains to what's happening with offices. And most people are saying that companies are telling them not to come back until there's a vaccine.
Oh, wow.
And some companies are doing the whole, like, you can work Monday, Tuesday, and then somebody else works Thursday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Sure.
And like, so there is a kind of a hybrid thing, but their offices are being very diligent about staying within the requirements for the number of people within the office.
Okay. And well, I mean, in Boston alone, I mean, from what I understand, there's some pretty hefty penalties for not following along.
Yeah, I'm not sure of them. Again, my office is about 6 miles outside of Boston.
Okay.
And again, I'm by myself in my office.
Sure.
But,
there's not a mask requirement at your office?
No. It's just me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess, as a woman in business, how has it been for you, I guess, breaking that glass ceiling and I guess, and for lack of better terms, and I don't want to sound, misogynistic here, but in what seems to be more stereotypically a male workforce of architecture and real estate, how has that been for you, and has that changed at all going into COVID?
Well, okay. So I started working in the architecture and construction industry when I was, I must have been 23 years old, and I didn't start my own business till I was 39. So I had 16 years working in an extremely white male dominated industry.
Okay.
And I would say that I never felt like my gender held me back in the industry at all.
Well, that's good.
I don't know why. I don't know if it's my personality. I don't know if it's because I grew up in a pretty tough Irish family, but I was just like, I just wasn't going to put up with shit. Like, and it never, I don't think I ever felt my gender in my industry until I was let go from a job that I was killing it, mind you. I was let go from a job where I was killing it, where I had reviews that said how wonderful I was doing. They had recently given me a raise because I was doing so good, and I didn't even ask for it. I was like, oh, you're going to give me more money? Great. And they let me go and replaced me with a man who I had known in the industry for a very long time, who couldn't hold a candle to me. He didn't have my connections. He couldn't make the phone calls I could make. And when they let me go, they said, this isn't based on performance. And I said, well, what is it based on? And that was the only time I ever felt my gender in the industry. And that's when I started my own business. And because I said, this is never going to happen to me again. Nobody who doesn't have half the skill set of me will ever take my job again.
Well, and I guess almost in a way that was a blessing in disguise. Then I'm assuming.
Oh my God, best thing that ever happened to me. Like, I licked my wounds for a while. Like, and the women in the industry. I mean, this is what's so amazing about having a network is like the men in the industry, but specifically the women in the industry who reached out to me with fear and said, if this can happen to you, it can happen to any of us. Because I was at the top of my game. Like,
sure.
And they were like, we never thought it would happen to you. Like, we could see it happening to other people, but not you. And I licked my wounds for a long time. I tried. It took a lot out of me to not say, I had to convince myself that it wasn't me. Like, I wasn't the problem. Like, I did my job. I did everything I was supposed to do. Everybody in the industry still thought that I was the number one person in the industry, or one of the number one business developers in the industry. Like, it took a lot for me to convince myself. Like, it takes a lot of courage and a lot of self-confidence to go out on your own. It takes even more when something like that has happened to you. But I knew how good I was at my job. And I also knew how strong my network was.
Which then, I mean, I think you saw it tenfold when you started your own business then, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I mean, I started my own business and the doors blew off. Like, I was like, oh my God, I should have done this 10 years ago.
Julie, I'm going to put you on the spot. I typically either ask this via email or something else, but this week has been completely insane. I'm going to put you on the spot. would you be willing to play a game called Would You Rather? Briefly, it's like our end of episode. Just kind of have some fun with it.
Okay.
All right. It's not. I promise you, it's nothing bad. All right. Would you rather? It's from my sponsor Poddex. Poddex. You can go to poddex.com. Use checkout code Dana Peloso for a 10% discount. They have a bunch of different decks. Julie, you might like it for your show. If you ever have a writer's block for episodes, they have an episode deck where you can choose different topics, and then they have questions. But this one here, which we have come to love, is called Would You Rather. So 3 questions, Julie. Would you rather? Would you rather be able to erase people's memory or predict their future, and why?
Ooh. Oh my God, that's such a good question. I would rather predict the future.
You'd rather predict the future. Okay.
I don't live in the past. Nobody should live in the past. If yesterday or last year or 10 years ago it was really heavy, put it down.
Perfect. So you would rather predict the future. I think that barring some unsightly things that might be down the road, I think I'd be with you on that as well, because I think I'd be more afraid to know what people are thinking than actually seeing what's coming down the road. All right. So the next question is, would you rather have creamy or chunky peanut butter?
Oh, chunky. Chunky.
Now that's in general in a sandwich. What's that?
I eat peanut butter every day. A lot of marathon runners eat peanut butter. Like we have our own jar that nobody can eat out of because all we do is eat out of it like this, and it's disgusting for other people.
My 6-year-old daughter might think that's a great idea. She's downstairs probably right now tapping into the peanut butter with a spoon herself.
I have my own jar. The dogs have their own jar because I take a spoon and like give it to, and then my husband has his own jar that like he eats out of like a normal human being.
Oh, that's incredible. So, and then the last one for you, Julie, is would you rather be covered in bees or covered in spiders?
Do I have clothes on?
I hope so. Yes.
That's an honest question.
Yes. Clothes are on.
Okay, so it's such an interesting question. I have a honeybee hive in my backyard. 40,000 Italian honeybees.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
That's
about 20 pounds of honey every year. And if I am in a suit, like if I'm in that bee suit, I'd rather be covered in bees. Yeah, they can sting you, but they won't. Like they're very docile. Like spiders are just gross.
Yeah.
And let me tell you a story. A couple of years ago, I was in California wine country. I was up in Los Olivos, and I rented electric bikes, and we were biking through all the vineyards. And I saw this big thing on the road, and I stopped my bike, and it was a tarantula.
No, thank you.
And then I got to the winery, and you know me, I'm like, oh my God, guys, I don't even know who these people are. I'm like, guys, I saw a tarantula on the road. And the woman's like, yeah, it's mating season.
Yeah. Come on.
Tarantulas are out looking for love.
Oh, that's funny. What do you do with 20 pounds of honey a year?
I give a lot away to, like, I thank my neighbors for putting up with my bees every year. So I give a lot away to the neighbors. And I give a lot to my clients, and then I give some to my family, and then I eat the rest.
Oh, perfect. I think my my wife doesn't go on to LinkedIn often, but you may find her going on to LinkedIn just to message you about honey.
Yeah, I mean, and it's so good for you. I mean, I don't know. The jury's probably still out on whether it helps people, but I don't have allergies, and I eat my own honey every day. Like I have a little bit of like in hot water and lemon every morning.
Okay.
I don't have any allergies, and all my neighbors have said that since they started eating my honey, their allergies are much better too.
Oh, get out. See that, Aaron? Write that down. So that is all for Would You Rather. I thank you for your willingness. Poddex, www.poddex.com. Use checkout code Dana Peloso when you check out for a discount. Julie, I thank you so much. We are right around the 1 hour mark, give or take. I am truly appreciative for you coming on today. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'll come back whenever you want.
That'd be great. I would love it, especially when you get that next book out. That'll be the first thing.
It's gonna be called This Shit Works Too.
Oh, there you go.
T-O-O.
I was just gonna say it's gonna be 2 as in 2 as well. Yeah, perfect.
T-O-O, yeah. T-O-2-O.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Julie. Have a great day. Bye. Take care. That is Julie Brown. She is author and speaker. And I lost my buttons again. Look at this. I start and finish with technological problems. There we go. There we are. There we go. All right. So Julie Brown, as Nicole was able to, you can pick up a copy of Julie's book on Amazon. I put the link in the chat there. Once this becomes its own YouTube video, I will also put a link within the comments there. If you haven't already, please float on to youtube.com/Dana Peloso. Hit subscribe and hit the bell. I was told last week that the bell isn't there. I don't know about that. There's a bell. A couple of the different YouTube channels that I listen to, they've got their bell. I verified the existence of the bell. All right. Go to youtube.com/Dana Peloso. Subscribe. Bell. Ding, ding, ding. All right. And also, please head over to facebook.com/Dana Peloso 82. Again, I would like to thank all of my sponsors, and hopefully next week we'll be adding 2 more to it and trying to come up with a new way to shuffle through the sponsors. But Tranquility and Company, I mess this up all the time. It's my wife's business. TRANQUCO.com. Tranquility and Company, quality handmade soaps and candles and wax melts. That's right, wax melts. Rock Solid Solutions, stonebuildsbest.com for all your hardscaping and wholesale stone needs. Villa, home ownership made easy. Facebook.com/Stephanie Harkins Real Estate. French River Auto Detailing, because every detail counts. Get your boat, RV, truck, SUV, motorcycle, pedal bike, tricycle, whatever you want. Get it detailed. Phenomenal work by phenomenal employee. Singular. That is all for today. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I've had some weekly listeners that are here without flaw every single week. I truly appreciate you all being here. And if you're listening for the first time, watching for the first time, thank you as well. Come back every Fridays at 10 a.m. Fridays, 10 a.m. Hopefully I'll be announcing some good guests and events coming up shortly, including but not limited to a live tour of a bakery in New York. There's your teaser for what's coming down the road. That is all for today. Thank you. Like, comment, share. Feel free to share the YouTube links, all that good stuff. You can watch all my past episodes. And that is all for today. Thank you very much.